I am going to present a paper about water as hazard and water as heritage in architecture for and by women. I am currently a Vasile Pârvan Fellow at the Accademia di Romania, Roma, in Italy, but for this paper I am using also research done for the Marie Curie Fellows Association with headquarters in Belgium. Women are a vulnerable social group when dealing with security to disasters, including floods. Therefore, their way of life has to be considered when planning preventive mitigation or reconstruction. In this contribution, we look at issues connected to architecture, water, for and through women. We consider women in three different roles, according to decision-making and participation. Women as mecenes, investors, women as landscape planners or architects, and women as users. The need of women to be included in the architecture programs which react to the presence of water, as well as in research programs dealing with this, for example, Horizon 2020. Architects and researchers' mobility contribute to the fact that little cultural differences can be observed between the countries. As an expert, either architect or researcher, the history of their involvement is rather short, since the beginning of the 20th century. Pioneer women in architecture date mainly starting with Art Nouveau and the modern movement, but some early examples, such as the Castle of Chenonceau, with contribution of Catherine Brissonnet, are also included. I included a figure. First, I will talk about water as dual element. Water is a dual element, both spending life and destroying it. Destruction occurs when water is either too little or too much, as it is today in case of climate change. In the cost-action gender study, gender issues are considered both at policy level, such as structural change, but also in research-related areas in Working Group 3 on cities, which includes a sub-working group on climate change. The Horizon 2020 framework program includes explicitly gender issues, and as such, the Gender Study Network prepares suggestions related to the issue of water in the framework. Other projects within the Gender Study Network include the Austrian GEA Clean project regarding gender and climate change in landscape architecture. On the other side, the positive aspects of water are related to tourism and leisure. Buildings at water, or buildings including water such as thermal baths, as in the figure, and aquaria can be designed for and by women. Water as decoration, fountains are also considered. I put a figure of a fountain by Milița Pătrașcu. The fountain by Milița Pătrașcu deserves special attention as it represents a cooperation between an architect and an artist for shaping public space. Similar cooperations were seen in the garden architecture in Vienna between landscape architects, women, and architects of the buildings. Next, I will talk about women in different decision roles. First, women as mecenes. Lessons can be learned from the history of the profession for the roles of planners today. In case of pioneers, the roles of mecenes, investors, of architects, planners, but also of users, were restricted to women of aristocratic background. As such mecenes, we mention Maria.Bostenaru for the restoration of the gardens of Mogoșoaia Palace on the Lake on Colentina River, as in the figure, Princess Ioan Ghica for the gardens of Gamberaia in Florence, and Queen Mary of Romania for the gardens in the resort in Balcic, now Bulgaria. Talking then of women of planners. The role women take in connection to planning, at and with water, is hence a relationship of power. In policy today, it should be learned how to make this accessible, including the entrance in the profession. Among women planners, we mention Maria Teresa Parpagliolo, the first Italian woman architect who designed the landscape of Esposizione Universale Roma, EUR, in 1942, and foresaw an aquarium below the lake. The aquarium is now being constructed. An aquarium is a living museum displaying a further dimension of water. It is not the water which renders vulnerability to the extremes given by climate change, but water is a vulnerable element. The value of the habitat in waters is being displayed in the museum to bring to the conscience of people the need to protect it, given the vulnerability today. Ideas in the heads of people protect better than legislation. More on pioneer women architects can be read in Ton Arhitectura, a recent book. For architecture and interior architecture, we consider the part of examples from Romania and Italy, also Hungary, which may be highlighted for pioneer art already in Art Nouveau, for example, Erika Paulaș, and in Estonia, Vivi Learn. Studies have been conducted on the change of the layout of buildings when women started to be considered distinctly of their home and child care role, but there are no studies yet related to water-inclusive architecture. Amongst the numerous innovations to improve the home of women and show in this context the new feminist direction is the kitchen. Margarete Schutte-Lihotzky is the author of the Frankfurt Kitchen. For homes, we designed a house containing a water mirror. There is a figure in the presentation. Talking about women as users, main programs covered are housing, school buildings, spiritual places, and thermal baths. These programs were chosen because different relationships between the adjacency of rooms with different functions exist in this case because of gender. For example, buildings analysis of the plan of the building is performed mainly using archival sources. I included a lot of images of archive sources. If considering spiritual places designed by women, such as a church in Brazil by Lina Bobardi, the cemetery in Barcelona by Carmen Spinoz and Enrico Miralles, the contribution of Nina Libeskin to the Jewish Museum by Daniel Libeskin, or for women communities such as monasteries, we notice the central fluxes in the functional flows in public spaces are taken into account. But these do not consider water, as it is present in religion as purification meal, the flood of Noah, the baptism, etc. Therefore, we approach the spaces of non-religious purification such as baths. The program exists in Roman time, hence our attention to Italy, but it was present in Ottoman times under another religion and highlighted to Art Nouveau times in the 20th century when women pioneers began to act as planners. The gender separation of the flows are important for thermal baths. Sometimes this extends to the urban scale of landscape with a QR perk in the respective resorts. We note that also today women architects work in pairs like in Interwar Poland. Finally, we talk about women as researchers. There is another role of women as experts a part of practicing architects. It is such a research we first approach when talking of the Horizon 2020 framework. The Marie Curie Fellows Association and later the Marie Curie Alumni Association prepared booklets on role models of mobile women. Some of them deal with aspects related to water, not the planning, but the composition of water, its chemistry, and the ecology of its habitat. As in case of women architects who are many times mobile researchers contribute to decrease the structural differences between countries. In case of research, this means a newly learned method from one country can be applied in another country. In case of architecture, this leads to a unification of style and through this of the cultural differences given by regionalism. It is in accordance with EU cohesion policy. In this framework, international encounters to the topic of water have been organized. Such one is the Junior Summit Water by the European Science Foundation at Lago Maggiore in Italy in 2012, bringing scientists from different disciplines around the topic of water and including also an overview of architecture, research and on site. In Japan, there is a 5-year program on promoting women in research. We started 2014 with a conference on the multiple aspects of water at Hokkaido University. The final thoughts are to endangered architecture. We would like to highlight the danger to these sites designed by women, where not so water is a danger, but the speculation which leads to different land use. Some of the buildings related to water of pioneer women architects have been demolished. A water tower by Virginia Haret, a house in the style of the Balcic villas by Henrietta de la Vrancea Gibori, as in the included figures, or a house by Richard Burdenache built for Ana Țigara Samurcaș, the later both on the Emerald Necklace area of lakes on the River Colentina in Bucharest. It can be seen how, on contrary, some of this architecture became icons of their time in a landscape today if we think of Mogoșoaia Palace. Conclusions. Thus, both the anthropogenic hazards and the natural hazards related to water have to be considered, and both water is a vulnerable habitat, but also the architecture people did in connection to it. Policy approaches are available, but their implementation has to be improved, and therefore lessons from early pioneers have to be learned. Some of the challenges from the pioneering time exist today.